What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm BruinSportsReport.com publisher Edward Lewis. As always, this is Ryan Karchi, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register. We're here tonight once again at CSU San Bernardino, where UCLA just wrapped up its 9th day of fall camp, and it was another two-a-day, another long day, another day filled with some news and notes and little nuggets here and there. The first one that everybody was concerned about was wide receiver Devin Lucien, who is back from a head injury. He looks to be okay. He was out there in a hat and some gym shorts and his jersey, walking around, talking to people. He looked like he was in good spirits, looked like he'll be back sooner rather than later. So that's a big sigh of relief for Jim Moore and the Bruins. Some guys missing. Scott Quisenberry is still out. Safety Randall Goforth was missing from practice tonight. Cornerback Marcus Rios was missing from practice tonight. So those three are still concerns for UCLA as we move forward in fall camp. Two guys that they got back tonight were offensive lineman Alex Redmond and offensive lineman Connor McDermott, who took his first real 11-on-11 and real hitting practice for the first time tonight. He still looked to be favoring the shoulder, but getting him back in that contact is a pretty good sign for UCLA going forward. Ryan, I wanted to get into you about the position battles now. I mean, it's been about a week and a half, 10, 12, whatever, how many practices it's been. It seems like the big three position battles have been locked up. Tell me about those.
I think we can pretty confidently say that there's at least clear favorites at this point. First you look at outside linebacker. I think to some degree it's going to be a rotation. I think you'll definitely see Deion Hollins. Wouldn't be shocked if you see Kenny Orgioki at all. But at this point, I think the number one guy there is Aaron Wallace. He's looked a lot better these last few days to me. A little bit quicker. Maybe it's just that he kind of needed to get back into game shape. I thought his pass rushing moves were a little bit better than I had seen before. But at this point, I think he kind of looks like the guy. Inside linebacker, I know we've talked plenty about this. We've given our opinions on who's the clear leader. Kenny Young just continues to look better than everyone else around him. I mean, the gap is only widening as we go on in practices. And for the third position battle of the three, at right guard, Najee Torin has just really stepped it up, I feel like, in the last week. It was interesting because a week ago, Adrian Clem said, Scott Quessenberry was the odds-on favorite for the job. But at this point, I think it's abundantly clear that Najee Torin, is probably the nastiest lineman on that line. It was funny. We talked to him today, and he said, he's obviously one of the smaller guys, but he showed a little attitude. He said he's not afraid to make it a fight. And he's definitely shown that through basically 2 weeks of camp so far.
He said he didn't care if he was 230 pounds. As long as he's putting somebody on their back, that's all he cares about. So those three really do look like the three clear-cut leaders. The only other real position battle that is still kind of up in the air is the quarterback position, the backup quarterback position. Brett Hundley kind of sat out tonight, really got his first day off of camp, and we saw a lot of Ashanti Ward and a lot of Jerry Neuheisel, but neither of them have really separated from each other yet. It's going to be a battle that goes on for the next couple of weeks, and Noel Mazzoni talked about that. He said, look, we don't really have a backup quarterback yet, and they're going to need to battle it out these next couple of days, couple of weeks, and we're going to really need to find one here soon. Top performers. Give me some of the guys that stood out tonight.
The first guy I watched quite a bit was Eddie Vanderdoes. He came into camp, didn't necessarily look as quick and physical and as violent really as he did during the end of last season especially. Obviously, he missed the spring. He's been out a while. He kind of needed some time to get acclimated again. And I think he's kind of getting to that point. But I do think it's an interesting distinction when you watch him at the beginning of practice and at the start of his reps. He looks a lot better. I know towards the end there are plays where I don't want to say he's taking them off because he's not, but he's obviously gassed and when he's that tired, he can't necessarily get those quick moves that make him so dominant. At this point, though, it's clear he's showing progress. And the other guy, I wanted to mention, Jordan James, really came back full go for the first time tonight. He's having the hamstring issues, but you really couldn't tell at all in the way he was running. He looked quick. He looked like he had that shiftiness that obviously he hasn't really fully had since the beginning of last season when he was one of the leading rushers in the nation. But maybe that bodes well for him, especially with Paul Perkins doing pretty well when he was out. So at this point, today I was definitely impressed with Jordan James.
The key thing for Jordan, he was by far the best pass blocker in one-on-ones versus in the linebacker running back reps. So that's probably going to be what gets him on the field and keeps him on the field. For my top performers, starting with Miles Jack, I know, huge surprise. It's always such a cop-out to pick him. But tonight he was just so dominant and so good that I could not put him on here. He had an interception in one-on-ones where he undercut Mossy Johnson, and just one of those plays where your mouth hits the floor. And then I went over to individuals and watched him with Jeff Ulbrich, and he's making one-handed catches like like you and I would make catches with a Nerf football. I mean, the guy is just freakishly athletic, and if it's at all possible, he looks like he's even better than he was last year. And last year, he was one of the best players in the country. So he's on his way to a huge year. The last guy is Jaleel Wadood. Filling in for Randall Goforth tonight. He got the start at the nickel, and he looked great. Just in coverage, he covers kind of like a corner, and he's got kind of that corner fluidity. But he also has this hitter's mentality where on 4th and 1 they were doing 4th and 1 drills. He came up and filled the hole like a linebacker and planted, I believe it was Paul Perkins, in the dirt. And he's just one of those kids, man. You could tell right from the start. Guys like Kenny Young, guys like last year Miles Jack. You could see this kid's going to be a contributor right away, and he's a guy to watch for this season. That'll wrap up our coverage from UCLA's 9th day of fall camp. As always, you can follow Ryan's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Ryan_Karchi. You can follow me on Twitter at EdwardLewisBSR. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.